Nikki, you ready to talk about NoBull?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Haha, it's been a fun week. Got a special guest that no one knows, at least none of our followers know, but I know intimately, my training partner for years in CrossFit. But beyond that dubious distinction, really, really strong in finance. But how long you been in finance, Marty? 20 years, 25 years?
When again, you're gonna age me, but yeah, it was 20 years as a stock analyst for fun, and then another 5 and change as a CFO of a software company.
There you go.
Hmm.
And well, so Marty Shagrin's joining us tonight. Marty is one of the guys that got me into CrossFit, so everyone can blame him. He was so cool.
Wow. Did you ever think when you were like, "Hey, John, you should totally try this out with me," that we would end up at meme lord status?
I really, it's we joke all the time how far he has come from the starter or the intro WOD he did was one of the greatest stories of CrossFit history.
Oh my
Um,
god.
Starter intro WOD was just epic.
Yeah, it was pretty nasty, pretty gross.
Okay, we'll have to save that story for a non-specialty episode, but I'm here for it. We'll have to have Marty back on, but I'm particularly excited to get your expertise on just kind of like chatting about the most recent information that we found out about NoBull and the investor deals and what it really means, or at least could mean, right? Because none of us are
Right.
in cahoots with NoBull. If only. I freaking
Well,
wish.
yeah, I wish too. And we should mention for those that haven't seen the news. So Noble sold a majority stake to a sports drink entrepreneur, a guy named, is it Mike Repole? Is that how you I don't know how you pronounce it. Repole, Repole. Yeah, I don't know. He's from Brooklyn. So who knows? But the guy's a billionaire, and his claim to fame was he co-founded Body Armor and sold it for quite a bit of money to Coca-Cola. So dude's quite the entrepreneur. So this is a big deal for Noble. So we thought we'd bring Marty on to chat about the ins and outs of it. So
Yeah. So, I mean, you should know Noble's obviously a private company. So everything you know about Noble is reported, not factual. It's not, they don't have SEC filings or stuff like that. So it's a little bit of trying to piece stuff together. It's factual like a public company.
it's
Sure,
a guess
sure.
it's a guessing game,
It's a
but you
guessing
use your
game.
best information you can to kind of figure it out.
Can you start really high level for the finance dumb like myself? At the end of the day, just really high level, like what does it mean? Does it mean that like the owners really don't own this brand anymore? Like why would they do this?
Yeah. So look, Noble's been an incredible success story. The last report that is, if you Google it in 2021 or end of 2021, they were valued at $500 million, according to these reports. And those same public searches show they have about sales of around 65, $70 million the last annual year. So that's a pretty hefty valuation. Just for perspective, when you value these businesses, you would do it on a multiple of sales or a multiple of EBITDA, which is another term for like profits. And just for perspective, Nike, which is the most successful athletic, shoe and clothes company in history, will trade at 23 to 25 times EBITDA or 3 times sales. And Lululemon, which is obviously successful athleisure company, trades at 24 times EBITDA. And this implies double or triple these kind of valuations. Now, Noble's going to have a lot more growth in front of it, but you're talking about really aggressive valuations given the opportunity that is in front of them. So all you're seeing is opportunistic founders who have had a tremendous success story. Kudos to them. It's been an incredible success story. And they're taking some chips off the table. I mean, it's a home run for them, I suspect. Without knowing the details, it's just an absolute home run. And so it's just selling to someone who wants to take it even more, put more capital into it, put more sales and marketing dollars behind it, expand the brand, invest more in the brand. Look, the Noble has done some NFL deals that are now more high profile. That's a different level than, I mean, CrossFit's great, but the NFL is a bit of a different animal. So you start doing things like that. They're looking at the market cap of Nike and Lulu. These are billion-dollar businesses, and Noble, the person buying NoBull now I'm sure thinking IPO, public, the opportunity, the ceiling is billions, and that's what they see.
It a little bit confuses me again because I'm really not smart in this type of area. What confuses me most, I feel like I understand the in general, like they're getting selling shares of their company, they're getting a great deal of money in. This person has a lot of connections, has a lot of capital, is going to reinvest in the companies, maybe going to get them a lot of opportunities to grow and expand in the way that they themselves, the two owners who are at the steering the ship, would not have been able to get on their own. But selling the majority of the company, does that mean that they no longer have control over the direction that it's going in?
That's exactly what it means. It is when you sell the majority of the company, you no longer it's I don't know. I haven't seen the reports about how much of the how much of a stake they sold, but the majority stake, that means the control now resides with just someone else. But again, I don't know the noble story, but if they raised capital and founded this brand and turned it what it is, I mean, that is a really good success story. And these are entrepreneurs likely, and what's going to come next is an IPO. And being a public company is great, but that's a different business than being an entrepreneurial startup.
For
It's really
sure.
different skill sets and it's just a very different game. And so for them, they're just saying, okay, we've had a success story. This has been a great run. We've called the shots for a long enough period of time. It's not that they don't need the capital. They could decide to stay and do all the things that the new owner is going to do, but it's just a different business than entrepreneurial startup to public IPO company. It's really a different animal.
I
And they might just not want that transition. They might have enjoy startups and aren't being entrepreneurial and being institutional. When you go public, all of a sudden you're an institutionally backed company and you have quarterly reports and quarterly conference calls. And it's really it's a different animal.
Mm,
And if you're entrepreneurial and you're used to doing startups, this is what you do it for. You do it for this transition.
mm,
I wonder if a little bit too, like it's losing the ownership stake might not be such a big deal considering who they sold it to. Like
mm.
if you look at the history of this guy, he took a $5 million investment from Kobe Bryant and flipped it to Coke for like $5.5 billion. Kobe Bryant made $400 million on that deal.
Mm.
So you're the owner of Noble. Looking at that deal, going, I like shoes, but I really like $400 million. I mean, that'd be my mindset.
Oh, look,
No.
without seeing the numbers, they could have easily kept a stub. They could have kept 10%, 20%. They're not majority holders, but they still have a bite at the apple still, whatever comes next. So I suspect they are not just completely going away again without knowing the details. But
Here's the question I have. So in my mind, I'm just gonna wonder out loud, has Noble peaked in CrossFit? Meaning every CrossFitter that there's ever been has heard of Noble. And everyone within CrossFit that wants to buy a pair of Noble shoes has either made that decision to do so or not. I know there's more people coming into CrossFit, but you know, we're nothing compared to the size of the NFL as an example, which is investing in them, right? So the question is, does this investment help CrossFit, or are they going to start reallocating resources toward the NFL and other things, and then in turn hurt CrossFit?
it's really interesting. I suspect CrossFit is their foundational user, customer, fan base. So you always want to maintain your core, but to do deals with the NFL or professional sport like that, and that's just a different audience, different size. I mean, they are all, if you watch the NFL draft this year, they're all over the NFL draft. I mean, that's just another league. As much as we all love CrossFit and enjoy it and all those things, we're talking about just different scale. I don't think Nike came in and invested in Metcons and thought CrossFit was an attractive market. So it is an attractive market, and it's a loyal base. I'm not the expert on what NoBull's going to do, but I don't think they would ever just forget about how they started and forget about their core customer. I think it's just about extension and expanding. And I mean, look, I like CrossFit, but I also like the NFL. So there's probably the crossover is probably fairly strong, I suspect. And so I don't think it means they just abandon CrossFit, but I think it means they want to grow.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point because I feel like we are, as a community, we're like really tight knit and we like to hold on to our stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, that's our brand. Those are our shoes. NoBull started as, I mean, I remember when the first NoBull 10 I ever saw or setup I ever saw was at like the ECCs, and like Ben Bergeron was an investor. This is like early on, a bazillion years ago. I still have a pair of shoes from that event that are still kicking. And I just feel like our instinct is to be like, well, that's ours. That's our brand. Like, is this outside money? Is this outside investor? Is this now majority owner going to take it away from us? And I think, Marty, to your point, like, it can expand and still be fundamentally ours, still be fundamentally a CrossFit brand, and likely can, in all sorts of different ways, relating to investing, relating to marketing, relating to product development, span all of these other sports and hopefully like endemic sports and other ways to really get the word out there about the brand. Maybe it'll even help bring more people into CrossFit if they like fall in love with a shoe that is just cool looking and they wear it just casually, and then they're like, "Oh, this started as a
Right.
CrossFit brand." I don't
Is it
know. I
is it
just
though? Is it cool looking, Nikki? Is it?
Yeah, some of them are really cool looking. I have a pair of floral
I know.
nobles from the very first release that I don't work out in because I love them so much. They're
Well,
so
look,
pretty.
I'm just wondering out loud because Noble is because of CrossFit, not the other way around. But this is very unique timing. Noble's in their last year of the contract with the CrossFit Games, and they've been negotiating with CrossFit the whole time. This is an entirely different level of negotiating when you move in with the big boys. And I promise you, like, I mean, I don't know the inner workings of CrossFit, but I'm gonna make a pretty educated guess. They've never had to sit down across the table from a guy like Mike Repole and negotiate ever.
Can we call him Big Mike since we don't
Big
know how to
Mike.
say his
Yeah,
last
yeah,
name?
Big Mike.
Big Mike's gonna walk
Rich
into
Mike.
the room and be like, Rich Mike, be
Yeah.
like, listen, this investment was cute. This partnership was cute, but I have new ideas.
Maybe. I worry about that a little bit. I'm with you. I don't think they're gonna leave their core audience. I mean, I do think CrossFit's their core audience. I just wonder if maybe they will drop the title sponsor and they'll stay involved in the CrossFit Games, but they'll let somebody take over that space.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
they'll be comfortable where they are so they can focus on NFL, golf, tennis, whatever else they're wanting to get into. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect the only thing none of us know the exact numbers, but I suspect a sponsorship of the CrossFit Games relative to a meaningful sponsorship with the NFL. You're just talking about different worlds. So this might end up being like low hanging fruit from a marketing perspective,
Sure.
and the real dollars, the real decisions on like what is the ROI on the NFL draft. I suspect if they're doing analysis on ROI of CrossFit sponsorship, it's probably fairly high and probably fairly a direct calculation that they can do. NFL draft is a little bit esoteric, but it's hard to know. So I wonder if they look at this on the spreadsheets and say the CrossFit sponsorship, no brainer, easy, relatively. Again, I don't know, but relatively speaking, not that high of an investment, and we know the return. And so maybe that's kind of like a foundational thing for them.
Mm,
And then to drive growth, they start, who knows how successful the NFL, I mean, this is the first year of I think this was the first year of the NFL draft. Who knows how successful that was? I mean, we don't know. I suspect getting the investment that they got, it probably went well.
Yeah.
It's hard to know.
yeah.
Yeah.
And they've been really ramping up to that because even last year they were already sort of sponsoring a couple specific Patriots players, and they had some activations up here at Gillette, which is very close to me. Marty, what does a deal like this mean structurally in the organization? When you bring in big bucks and a new leader, sometimes Rich Mike wants to bring his own people in to help run the show. And we already saw some shakeup within the organization, within NoBull over the last few months. I don't really understand how much of that is directly related to this deal that was like coming down the pipeline, or is it now that this deal has been officially made, now Big Mike is going to bring in all sorts of his own people. We're going to see even more changes. Like, what's the timeline of that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, look, again, it's hard to know what Big Mike's going to do. He's obviously more successful in his own right. And no one needs to give him the blueprint to drive success. He kind of knows it. But, usually when you're making an investment like this is not, I don't care who you are, this is not a small investment. And you're buying it because you like the brand, you like the business, you like the company. So it's one thing when you buy a broken business and you're turning it around, you would probably shake things up. But when you're buying a hyper growth company like this with the valuation that I suspect he had to pay, you probably like what you're buying. And so I suspect he won't flip everyone around and clean house. That's why he bought this, is because it is successful and it has been doing well and it is growing the way it's growing. And it has kind of taken over and owned that CrossFit audience, which is such a loyal and stable audience. And now it's buying the ability to kind of attack the NFL and professional sports. And I suspect he likes what he sees and isn't going to clean house and start over because it's very successful.
Yeah.
So that sort of brings me to my next question, which is, does that also mean that he likely is buying this to be in this versus buying it to grow it and flip it? Because I know that there are a lot of people within our community who are upset about his past business dealings having to do with Coca-Cola and the way that the CrossFit community feels about Coca-Cola versus just looking at smart business decisions for himself. So like i- if he's coming into this business because it is already on a successful track and he thinks he can continue to ride that with his resources, does that likely mean that he's not just looking to sell it to the next big organization?
Yeah. The only reports I've seen is the potential talk about an IPO of NoBull. And I mean, look, there's been really successful consumer brands like this. Under Armour was for a period that's gone through some more difficult times lately, but for a while, this was the one of the most high flying public companies, hyper high valuations, hyper growth. So his exit probably is IPO, and that's not a flip. You sell a percent of that to the public, and you get institutional investors, and it's a different animal. But you can take it public and not give up control and still own it, and that could be your exit. And so, I mean, look, if someone were to knock on his door and he could flip it, I suspect anyone's going to listen to an offer. It just makes sense to at least listen. But this to me, again, I don't know Big Mike. I think no, who knows? But this seems like I'm buying this, we're gonna grow it, and we think an IPO is a really doable thing here.
Hmm.
Yeah, I had that sense too. I worried momentarily. I like a quick little moment where I'm like, what if he's just buying it to flip it? And if so, who's the buyer?
Mm.
Who would want Noble? Like who needs it? Like does Lulu, as an example, need a shoe company, which they do, by the way, because their shoes are trash.
They are?
Um,
I haven't tried them. You tried
well,
them
they
already?
they don't have men's shoes, so no, and they don't make a women's size 16 or
The women's size 65.
or whatever would convert from the size 11 I actually wear. But I'm with Marty. Like I'm not sure that's the play for kind of
Mm.
like Noble seems to be and has seemed to be for some time to be a continued growth company. Like they haven't really been struggling. And truthfully, like right up until the point they did layoffs, everything was going really well. Now the economy's had some weird returns recently, and I suspect those layoffs, you can keep me honest here, Marty, were just to clean up their balance sheet anyway, just to get them ready for this
Yeah.
investment. But
Wouldn't be the only growth company, hyper growth company. A lot of companies, especially in, I mean, a little bit of a different end market, but a lot of the technology companies who have huge just ramps in hiring have scaled some of that back. I mean, a lot of the hyper growth technology and software companies have laid people off. It doesn't mean their growth plans have changed. So It just means you overhire in a bull market and you scale some of that back when things get tighter. There could have been a little bit of a prettying up the P&L and L and the balance sheet for sale. That's always a real thing. And if that was their strategy, it- that's certainly possible to make it look a little bit better when they're going to sell. But it's certainly, I don't think that is an indication of what the business is doing. I think that's just ebbs and flows with the economy. And look, when everyone else is scaling back from a personal perspective, it seems like you kind of get a free pass to downsize and no one's going to look bad about
Yeah.
it.
All right, last question because we've gone longer and we really plan to. So if they go IPO, you buying?
I'm a value investor at heart, so I'll probably sit this one out.
Yeah. I think if you just buy a pair of shoes, they're so damn expensive, it probably counts as buying
You're
shares.
right.
Really?
We have a few pair of shoes, so that's my fault. But
Yeah, well, that happens.
Can you retroactively get shares for all the pairs of shoes that you own? Because that's the market you're in, John.
Oh man, I actually might be the majority share if that were the case. I absolutely have a majority share in Rad right now. There's
I
no
was
doubt
gonna
about
say,
that.
I feel like Ben should be calling you to offer you a portion of the company based off of how many rads you have right now.
Yeah, there is no doubt about that. Well, Marty, thanks for joining. You actually made finance seem kind of interesting tonight, so I appreciate
I
that.
know.
Thank you. Thank you for
I
dealing
think
with my stupid questions too. It's a very complicated field, and Lord knows I should not, but I do act as sort of the CFO for my company. So like it's like kind of messy. But we are a very small entrepreneurial company, so it's way easier than this
We
stuff.
that's right.
we will have you back on, and you can tell stories of the stupid things we've done together, and can
Yes.
give Nikki financial advice so she'll quit buying $8 lattes every day from
I
Starbucks.
will not
Be great.
actually quit that. So the financial advice will be stop doing it, and I'll be like, no.
No,
It makes you happy. Keep doing more of it.
there you
He
go.
should be my financial advisor. Let's talk.
I
And can
know.
you tell my husband that
Yes,
sentence? Thank you.
I need my wife, so it'll be perfect.
There you go. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll chat with you guys soon.